Hello, people, and welcome back to another episode of the USL Show. If you are listening on Spotify, because we have now just started showing back up in your feed on Spotify, hi, welcome back. We think we got that fixed. And if you're listening on Spotify because it hasn't been showing up in your Apple podcast feeds, we don't know about that one yet. We'll figure it out. There's a whole lot to talk about. There's a whole lot to go through. But honestly, the biggest thing that we can talk about is if you're watching the stream, we are a part of the Protagonist podcast family now. We talked about it a little bit on Twitter, and now it's covering up John's face, but, you know, it's fine. Look, we talked to Dan. We talked to the other Dan. We talked to Joshua. You know, we talked to everybody over there, and it just felt like it was, you know, the right time to make that a formal partnership. And you're going to start seeing a lot of written work by us. You're going to start seeing our stuff pop up over there, a lot more collaboration. Nothing here is going to change other than the name set at the end of the episode of who we're like presented by. And we're just going to see more content from us, which for everybody else on the screen is great. You probably don't want to see anything else from me, and I get that. But any further ado, before I talk all day long, Phil, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Excited about the Protagonist news. I mean, every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. I will say, I brag a little bit. I wrote the first ever article published on Protagonist about Pumas. Kitsap Pumas. Yeah. And the sad demise of a historic Northwest American club. Anyways, but yeah, excited to be back on the network. Yeah, excited to chat some good USL football tonight.
I mean, I'm just going to ask the question that Ryan asked you pre-show. Do you shave after every El Paso win?
I guess it's becoming a tradition. And hey, it's working so far. We're on a nice little run. So I don't know, you guys, you may not see the beard anytime soon.
Hey, if it makes you happy, well, this next week it's going to be a little weird because do I want Alan happy or do I want you happy? I guess a draw will make everybody happy and no one happy at the same time. So,
well, whatever. Alan's not here, so
that's true. He skipped out on us. What a snake. Speaking of someone who's been skipping out on us, welcome back, Sean.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I missed. It was only 1 week, and it feels like it's been a decade. But happy to be back with the gang. Yeah.
How you doing, man?
Decent.
I mean, look, when your edit of the Maryland Bob Lilies came, I didn't expect it to make me laugh that hard, but it got me. It got me really good. It was much better than I expected it to be.
I think the fun thing about the Open Cup is that I don't have to pretend like I have a responsibility to cover it. So, like, here I am photoshopping NISA logos.
Yakety sax.
Right.
that had me going.
Man, Ryan. Man, okay, so what is it? I can't tell. Is that Marseille?
Yeah, Marseille. Yeah. After a weekend that made me give up mostly on my English team, happy that God's chosen team came in for a win over Oakland. But yeah, it's like Phil said, once you're out, it's really tough not to come back into the sport.
You know, I mean, it's maybe he's a little closeted about it, but I mean, John's might be the most closeted Tottenham fan of all time. And I noticed after the first 5 goals started going in, I started seeing USL posts going out, and I was like, all right.
It's officially the time where I can just start writing something else and aggressively tuning out.
Time to get some work done.
Well, I had laughed because I had turned off the first half to go watch, I think it was Feyenoord's match in the Dutch, and then someone threw a bottle on the field, and that match got suspended. I was like, well, you're really doing everything you can to make me go back for us and watch the end of this.
Oh man. But listen, as talking about other leagues, let's talk about the biggest league in the world as I keep obnoxiously posting on Twitter. Um, listen, maybe I'm wrong. We always have one of these a year across League One and the championship. This might be one of the most boring weeks ever. It was so boring. There was two matches in the championship that was like, this is exciting stuff. And then the rest were like, that happened. Cool. And League One had a couple of exciting moments. And it was like, oh man. I mean, Lexington has the honor of having more red cards than club wins. That it's something. But
Tyler's not here either, so because
no.
if I speak, I'm in big trouble.
But I want to go ahead and start off because normally this is where the tactics show is, but we're going to push that for predictions, and you'll see why. I want to start off with probably the most entertaining championship match, which is Indy versus Monterey Bay, where Indy finally looks like they figured out how to score, and then Monterey Bay continues this insane push to have the highest conversion rate of all time, where it just feels like everything they touch goes into the back of the net. I want to start off with you, Ryan. Like, is Indy just bad at defending? Is Monterey Bay just that good? And there's no way they can keep this up of this conversion rate, but does it look like it's dropping off anytime soon?
I mean, the 3 wins that Monterey Bay have to start the year has seen them score 5 goals, 4 goals, and 3 goals. And if you're just looking back at some of their victories last year, they very rarely, I mean, I see 4 games all last season where they scored over 2 goals in a win, which they're already on pace to kind of match that and far surpass that this next season.
It looks like Phil, you're about to say something about Ben.
I mean, it is like this is kind of a crazy result in a number of ways, but the first is like Indy was supposed to be like obviously a high-powered offense. Like they have all these names, even the names on the score sheet in this one: Solomon Asante, Sebastian Genzati. Like you're talking about some of the best goal scorers in league history. And meanwhile, like Monterey Bay, I think each of us kind of talked about, is Valesky that guy? Like, do they have the finishers? Like, are they too reliant on like Chase Boone? And I mean, Chase Boone like hasn't really scored that many goals, and they've scored hatfuls. Christian Valesky is like finishing at a pretty good clip right now. And again, it's like it feels like this perfect storm a little bit with Monterey Bay of just completely crazy finishing rates, because whatever, they have a 30% conversion rate in this one, which again is just insane.
They've got a 30% conversion rate on the season.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, it just feels really crazy, but at the same time, like Indy for whatever reason can't, like the trademarks of Mark Lowry teams that we often see, it just isn't there with this team yet. And like maybe it is something that developed, but I worry that like Lowry's success in El Paso was always predicated on like good defense, and then the goal scoring was always something that came after. The fact that they're not really playing good defense and not scoring that much, like obviously this game aside, but they're not playing great defense either, that is where it does start to be troubling a little bit, because it just starts to not feel like a Mark team anymore.
The thing of this game for me was that Indy really did mix it up in terms of that passing profile. Like they were going direct a lot more often and really seeing results for it. They were able to pin Monterey back to a certain degree. And then when they finally were getting settled in the final third, you were getting a very Lowry-esque ability to push your fullbacks high up, really push players forward, and that's when Monterey can totally hit you on the counter. And you pretty much saw that on the Valesky goal, where he's able to wrong foot a fullback who's playing as a center back because of injuries.
Yeah.
that there's a turnover where a central midfielder scores the goal off of Lesky assist. When Indy sits back and plays a defensive game, they can't score. When they show a little bit of gumption and try to be more offensive, they can't defend. I don't know what the answer is right now.
And the thing with Indy that's really kind of blowing my mind right now, and maybe not blowing my mind, but you see a lot of you want to say, well, look at their XG, look at their XG, look at their XG. The goal scoring opportunities are there. They're getting them. They're getting them. It's incredible just how little of their chances are on target and how many of them are just not challenging the keeper. I mean, one of the best matches they had all season was against Tampa Bay. And in the terms of actually putting their challenges or putting their shots on target, and that's incredibly bolstered by a penalty. It just feels like whenever they take shots, they're not only because you want to look at these numbers and you say, well, they're getting shots in good areas. They're racking up the XG numbers, which I always say is like it only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. It doesn't matter. It only helps you find patterns. And their pattern is that they cannot put shots on target unless they're just low quality chances. And in this match, they do it a little bit. They start putting out a little bit more, I don't want to say effort, but they force a decent performance out of Herrera. And even so, I don't want to sound too mean here, but Herrera should have done better on really, I think it was the second goal that he really could have done a little bit better, that he wants to look at his positioning and say, not as great as you would want. And it takes a slight underperformance for them to finally score. It just feels weird.
And we were like this kind of starting the preseason that maybe there would be a bit more growing pains from Indy 11, but like within this match, they had ended a scoring drought of 322 minutes and are now on their longest winless run since they had a 12-game winless run in the middle of last season. It like outside of this game that they've had, they hadn't scored more than one goal in a match all year.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, just like the names on the team sheet, you're just it like it I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense like how poor they've been in front of goal.
Well, it's something I said on Twitter today, and we'll get to them later, but it was in regards to Detroit City, right? Where if you look at career numbers, Antoine Openo borderline overperformed last year. He was much better there than he probably should have been relative to other places. But there's sometimes a good player meets the perfect system in the perfect environment and they become beasts, right? We see like Sebastian Guinzotti, incredible player. I don't think anybody's going to say, well, he's bad now. He's not, but sometimes you are in the perfect situation for you to score. You're in the perfect situation for you to perform with the perfect coach, with the perfect environment around you, where frankly, you're praised as a local hero. And you take them out of that and you try just to run back the greatest hits in the USL without looking at the context around them. And it just feels like Indy might have missed. It's early in the season, but also how long can we say it's early? We're a nice chunk of the way in the season. We kind of know who they are right now.
And you're looking at their next 6 games that have basically Pittsburgh, Loudoun, Sacramento, Colorado Springs, Louisville, and Charleston. And that's a very tough stretch. Like, at what point do you kind of start finding where your panic buttons are?
Yeah. Well, if anybody has anything else on either Monterey Bay or Indy, we are going to go ahead and move on to the it shouldn't be that shocking. When you see the names when you see the team names, it's not a shocking result. But Miami scored 4 goals at home. I think that should not be on anybody's USL bingo board, which is bizarre against a Las Vegas team who has been surprisingly decent and also bad, but also good. And this is the first time they haven't lost. This is the first time they've lost, but it's also they still winless. They always seem to be able to do enough, but this time Miami looked really good, and that back line for Las Vegas was just a revolving door, just turnstile of defending. It was not great.
Yeah, I mean, I know you were high on them, and I bought in after 1 week. This Lights team is bad. Like they had a good 2 week stretch where they just kind of bunkered in that 4-4-2 and looked like they could defend. But when like Andrew Carlton is your number 6, you're not going to be doing much defensively. And I mean, that's not to discredit what Miami was doing. I thought getting Mark Segbers back was a huge deal on the right side. He really was the initiator of everything that was putting Vegas out of their shape. But switching up that attacking line, I know because of injury, you're getting Repetto over Kyle Murphy, but getting Christian Sordo in there, Ryan Telfer looked bright. There was a lot more interchange in motion. I think there's a lot of times where this Miami team can get a little bit slow and very lacking in what they're doing offensively. So some of the personnel changes deserve credit there, but this probably isn't the game that's going to make or break what I'm thinking about Miami.
I did really highly enjoy going into the weekend the fact that USL like had to include Lights as a undefeated team when they made the post about Sacramento and Charleston, and it was like, and Lights, like they also haven't lost technically. Like that is I think this was one of those that it's like it's been coming for this Lights team, and Miami just happened to put together like the performance that made it happen. I do think like it even probably flatters Miami a little bit because the penalty for me is like super duper soft. But it could have it easily could have also been worse on the other end. Like there's a couple of good chances for Miami that end up going begging. So I mean, this could have been even uglier for Lights in a different world, which is, I mean, at 4-1, like that's a rough thing to walk away from the match with. But
that Joaquin Rivas goal was like the worst back pass you're ever going to see in your life. Also,
yeah,
like, they were getting some easy ones there.
It was like, yeah, match fixing allegation level back pass. Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a Miami team who last season, the last time they scored this many goals was when they beat New York Red Bulls 2-7-1 towards the end of the year, and they hadn't scored 4 goals at home since they beat Loudoun 6-1 in 2021. It seems like this was a result that Miami certainly needed to just get a win, to obviously their first one to start the year. But yeah, if it wasn't going to happen this week for Las Vegas, they run into San Antonio over the next 3 games twice, and then they have Charleston in between that. So the other shoe was going to drop at some point. They weren't going to have the dream season of going invincible in 0034.
So I'm still working on it, and I've kind of talked about it on my personal social media a little bit, but I've been working on just trying to find a formula to rate out keepers, basically. And do you know what's wild? And I'm going to mess up his name. Is it Zulaga? Zulaga?
Yeah, Zulaga.
He came out in this match as a net positive. And I'm not saying he played well because he didn't, but everybody else was so much worse that they made him work so much harder and put him under so much pressure that you look back and he wasn't the problem. He wasn't fixing the problem, but he wasn't the problem. And any time that you concede 4 goals and you can say, nah, keeper wasn't the problem, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolute shooting gallery. NIU Huskies.
Oh, bless them. Moving on, we are going to go from the East Coast to the West Coast out to Irvine, and Legion come away with a 2-1 win over Orange County. After going down early, Legion get 2 goals, and it was a match. It was one that happened.
Well, speak on it from your perspective. How did you feel about that game from the Legion performance perspective, because I couldn't get a real read from my end on whether I should feel positive or negative about how they played in that one.
They decided that it was cool to have a pulse, so that was a plus. Um, you know, the Colin Smith, he leaves me very confused. And that's kind of where I left this game. Was Colin Smith he's a Legion's right back for people who don't know, but he's playing right back because FC Dallas wants him to be a right back. He's naturally a right winger, and you can tell that because he made team of the week in the USL because he got an assist from right back, but he's also the sole reason that Legion conceded at all because he's not there yet as a right back. But you saw the duality of man almost because defending was not good, but then whenever he actually passed the ball to Enzo, it was really nice. I I think where I ended up leaving was Legion they went down 1-0 from a mistake. The young kid picked himself up, and it wasn't really anything that Legion did better than Orange County. I just think better talent prevailed. And that's kind of where I'm left. I'm not really happy about the win and saying we've overcome demons, but I'm definitely like, well, it's nice to see that talent can perform.
I mean, just like stats wise, I do think Legion can count themselves like a little bit lucky that OC weren't very good on the night, like finishing wise. And they do end with like 12 shots inside the box. So I do think there's probably questions around like the volume that Legion conceded. But overall, like the quality of chances and the chances that Legion created were better. So, it's quantity versus quality essentially in the end in this one. And I will say it is like a big stop right at the end that denies Andrew Fox an equalizer from a pretty good hit. So it was like balanced on a knife edge up until the very end. But Legion, I mean, I think we have to be able to acknowledge that any team going to the opposite coast and getting a win is absolutely like that is a free hit. And like those are like priceless points because so few teams are going to pull that off this season. And I think we've already seen like just in our, like the few games that we get right in our pick'em are pretty much just teams going to the other coast and picking them to lose, like, because it does happen so often. But yeah, it took a little bit of a worldie, but you need to ride your luck in a game like that. I think to some extent, and they did enough in the end. I do think there's probably a little question in OC's defense too on the Enzo goal, because essentially like Andrew Fox has the passing lane covered and his partner in central defense like also goes and defends the same guy. So yeah.
I mean, and it needs to be said, Trevor Spangenberg, good on him. I love that guy. But also Cody Cropper, I'm not really sure what he's doing there because, as you said, Fox kind of has that covered, and Cropper is still hugging the crap out of his near post. And maybe he's afraid of Juan Agudelo at the front post. But even then, Fox has that particular passing lane done. The only option that Smith has there is the cut back, and yet Cropper is still tugging on that near post very hard. At that point, you need to trust your center back. And it felt like there was a little bit of a lack of trust and a necessity to stay on that near post. And that's kind of what burned him both on both of those. As some of you said about the quality of chances and stuff like that, and about the quantity of chances that Legion give up, this is something they've been doing all year long. And again, XG only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, but it tells you patterns, right? Legion on average, so they are giving up, if I can just find this real fast, they're averaging 12 shots against, which is, I think, close to average. I mean, it seems.
Yeah, that is roughly.
And they are allowing about 12.7, or sorry, about they're averaging about 0.12 xg per shot, which if you think about that, if it's every single shot they take has a 12% chance of going in, it's not great, especially with the rest of the league being much lower than that. And in this game, I mean, heck, Legion gave up every single shot that they gave up had a 14% chance of going into the back of the net. Legion came away very lucky, and this is something that's been happening all year long. And so it just feels like another normal Legion defensive performance where they're not giving up a ton of chances, but when they do, they're really big ones. And this match had a lot of them.
Yeah, just quick word on OC real quick. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Ryan.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just struggling with the balance lineup wise that OC can't seem to figure out. Is Alex Villanueva going to be the left back in this team? Are we going to use him as a winger? He was almost playing as the number 10 at times in this one. And where does that leave Milan Nalaski? They've got 3 or 4 other forwards that they're trying to give minutes to. And they still haven't figured out who is the best player to put alongside Milan Nalaski, the reigning Golden Boot winner, to maximize what he's doing. They showed flashes early in the season when they were a little bit more possessive. They were building short out the back based around what you get from Andrew Fox. They seemingly abandoned that. They feel just a bit rudderless, and it's sad for me to see because I really thought this was going to be a rebound year for them after what was a crushingly disappointing 2022.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately for Birmingham, what was important with this match was, of course, just getting the 3 points. I mean, if you look back from last season, it was only a handful of times that they had, it was 3 times last year that they had just a span of 3 games in a row where they didn't get a win. And just to kind of just stop the bleeding and kind of instill a bit more belief into the side was really crucial. I mean, you have a few more games coming up with Hartford, Miami, and Oakland as the next 3 as a way to continue just kind of building on this early season momentum as Birmingham are still second in the table.
Yeah, all that being said, I mean, I still think that Orange County has a lot that they can take with them. I still like the way Orange County looks. I thought Villanueva was going to be a much bigger role. I think I liked him more as the 10. I think having him play as the 10 and put Milanowski over on the left and just let that roll. I think I like that more for them, or just putting Milanowski, just blatantly say, just go up top, young buck, and figure it out and have those two play off each other. Right now, it feels like Orange County is just still trying to figure it out. And I really don't know why, because it feels like all the pieces are there and they already have a shape, but it feels like they're trying to reinvent that shape along the way. Speaking of someone who kind of reinvented their shape, and boy, did it come out better than ever. Hey, Tormenta goes up and they get their 2-0 win. They get the monkey off their back, and they looked dang good doing it against One Knox, who signed a whole bunch of players that people have heard of, but a little bit like indie, sometimes the greatest hits don't come out as the best album. And Tormenta really does it to One Knox getting a 2-0 win.
Yeah,
go ahead on that, Phil.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, it really does hinge like around Mateus Cassini's introduction, like him coming on, unbelievable. Like in terms of the goal that he scores, he's got absolutely no business like roofing it from the byline. Like I have no idea how it went in. Like even watching it back, I'm just still a little bit baffled by the physics. But then also creating the second, and Jackson Quarry like with a nice finish. And I do think like getting back to like figuring out who their difference makers are and who they can lean on in these matches where they're having trouble like breaking a team down. I do think like they were impressive in this one, even though I would say maybe at the end of the day, like a little underwhelming from like what they were able to create, and that One Knox were able to frustrate them for long periods. But yeah, in the end, like they do enough, and Cassini like with the impact substitute performance of the weekend, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen that Cassini goal, go out and watch it. The angle at which he takes this thing on, I think it's the volley or the half volley, is completely absurd. I did think that Tormenta for a lot of the game looked more controlled. They did a good job of beating those one Knox wingbacks to get some looks and some crosses. Sometimes it just takes one of those plays where you punt it 60 yards down the pitch and get the goal of the week to get a win. So Tormenta is going to be good. They are still so stout defensively. This is the kind of game you got to grind out when you're on the road in an expansion team. So.
Yeah, and it kind of turned it over on the other side with one Knox after their opening week win over Lexington 2-1. They have lost twice and drawn once. It's certainly something that you don't want to see kind of spiral early in the season. They have a chance for a bounce back game this week against Central Valley Fuego, but then after that you have Madison, Northern Colorado, and Chattanooga, which is certainly a tough kind of slate of games for them. That it's just one that it could very quickly kind of fall off the rails soon.
I just have to put in a shout too for the fact that like One Knox's venue continues to be the most unhinged in all of USL, and like people's heads popping into frame of the like main camera was just like, that just really took me back. Like it made me feel like I was on the Maikuju like those sorts of streams back in the day of just someone, with a cell phone in the bleachers trying to figure it out. But yeah, I I don't know why, like between their audio levels and now like just like random fans in the frame, it makes me chuckle.
I'm
I'll
glad
have to
other
mark
people.
my Kuju reference off of my bingo card tonight.
Hey, we're on Protagonist. That's the sort of stuff that we got to get used to.
It's true. I'm really glad that people who don't follow like the SEC women's soccer is finally experiencing the chaos that is Knoxville's, which is Tennessee Stadium. I'm glad they're finally experiencing that because it's horrible. There was one match, I think it was Tennessee and Kentucky a couple years ago, where they lost all the balls because they went straight into the forest. Like every single shot just kept going into the forest. They had to delay the match and find new ones. And I'm really hoping it happens. It feels like something that would happen against like Union Omaha. Union Omaha goes up by 1 goal, 80th minute. They just keep kicking it into the forest and just hoping.
Well, and speaking of crazy venues to watch a match on, Greenville on Furman's like football field is genuinely like watching. It's like, I don't know, it's like hallucinogenic almost in like the way the lines interact on TV. I was having like such trouble. Well, like, yeah, everything, like people are like penalty shout, all this stuff. I'm just like, I have no idea. Like I couldn't tell you what's happening. I feel like I'm on acid right now.
I always appreciate whenever they have the football lines out that I can get like just eyeballing an exact measurement of how far goals are or shots are from out. I don't have to ask me. I was like, oh, that looks like it was about 25 yards out. I was like, no, he shot it from the 30-yard line. So
I unironically enjoy football lines from time to time for that very reason. Because it's like, that was a long pass. How long was it? 42. Cool. And,
Was football lines or baseball field? Which is the preferred?
there was a.
if Oakland moves into Alameda Coliseum, they could have all three.
And some possums in the press box to boot.
Oh, I was gonna say Oakland roots with the OKC, the Rio OKC pitch on Alameda. Kind of just combine all the.
I think there was a U.S. Open Cup stream from this year, and maybe it was Northern Virginia Nova, and they were playing on a pitch that was like too short, and it was almost like a U12 sized pitch. It was super skinny. It had football lines, lacrosse lines, and a rubber infield for baseball. It had every single one of those lines on the field. And I was dying because like at first I didn't realize that the field was too small. And so the keepers looked like they were booting it 70 yards every time. I'm like, oh my God, someone signed these guys. Like they're having a keeper war and they're just going back and forth. No, it's just because it was like 20 yards shorter than most pitches. It was an insane watch. Oh man. Moving on because we have one more match to talk about. And speaking of Greenville, go and give Phil a little bit of an acid trip against Fuego, who them as just a club is just an acid trip in general. Greenville get a 3-1 win. They're only their second win in 14 matches. And they finally seem to get a little bit of the monkey off the back. They get to goal scoring. They get a shutout. Maybe this is mean, but does it count because it was against Fuego? I don't know.
So just
Honestly,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Greenville needed this week. They needed 2 wins just on the board because it's been a just season start from hell for them, and to just get the 2 shutout wins, something that they hadn't done since last season, to have 2 back-to-back shutout wins, I believe. That was just so crucial because if it wasn't going to be this week, you have North Carolina and Charlotte coming up in their next 2 games. That just provides a further gauntlet for them.
Yeah, I'm kind of just going to slate Fuego for a minute. I mean, they've given up 7 goals and scored 2 across their first 5. They really looked like they didn't have any ideas other than just kind of vaguely play the ball in Villanviev's direction. I did think that Ozzy Ramos had a good game in the midfield. I think he's one of the most underrated players there is in League One. He's really excellent. Stupid bit of color here that when I was going through to get my League One projections updated last week, I realized that I never updated Fuego's roster after opening day, and they signed announced the signing of 14 of their guys after the season had started for everyone else, just because they're Fuego and they don't run a serious operation.
The San Antonio approach.
Right. So
25-day contracts for everybody.
San Antonio won the league.
That's true. Hot week though for Noah Pilato for Greenville, who I love that far post crashing in against Lexington at the weekend. So nice to see him get on the scoreboard twice. But yeah, Fuego bad.
This was the match that I rediscovered that Lucas Coutinho was still playing for Greenville. He just kind of showed up and scored. I think it was like in the 11th or 12th minute. And it's like, oh, you're still here. Like, I mean,
couple of bangers from him, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't really I'm really happy for Greenville, and I want this to be a celebration. I want to be able to reach out to Gio and said, "You were right, man. Like, you guys were right. It was all coming together." But also, it was Fuego, and I mean, I don't know all the details. So if someone with Central Valley can tell me, but the tensions between front office and fan had already been high from last year, and they were decent last year. I mean, their start was kind of insane last year, and it kind of carried them to being just below average, and it kind of carried them throughout the season. They don't have that now. Their fans hate their front office. The team isn't good enough to go support, and obviously go support your local club, but even people who are diehards, it's hard to watch whatever this is. And say whatever you want about Bajev. I mean, they moved him everywhere. They put him up top. They let him be the guy who became a distributor. They let him become a shadow striker. They kind of moved him over to the right side. They kind of moved him to the left side. And they let him they said, you know what? You're not going to score. Why don't you just pass from like a deep lying midfielder? And it's like, what are we doing? Bajev is not just a Swiss Army knife of a player. Like, he kind of can do it, but also he's not what he once was. And I hate saying that, but he's not. And Fuego are just saying, please do something, Bajev, please. And there's no one around him that can help him. It's a brutal watch.
Fuego de Contendor. It's a dumpster fire. there aren't many teams that I like hold anything against or whatever, but Fuego did put me through last year, probably one of the worst nights of my entire life in that Open Cup game. And a lot of people got to watch that occur and unfold live on YouTube and etc. So the bottom line is that I'm glad that they're suffering. It is no less than they deserve. No, it really was like, it made for brutal viewing. It was like, you don't get many of these like one-sided games in League One. Like there's so much parity in the league, and to see a team get so thoroughly dominated is so strange. Fuego they offered absolutely nothing, like aside from a decent strike like late on from Vasquez, I believe. But I mean, other than that, it was literally like they just had no threat, weren't good defensively. Like they were really they were looking for, in the Greenville goals, like looking for fouls in the buildup as like ways to stop them from scoring. It was just, it's just bad. And I don't know that there's like a way out for them. I think, like, unfortunately, the season is going to be rough, and they are going to have to just Tucson their way through it and hope for the best.
Except Tucson had players to root for. Tucson had good players.
Tucson had a 6-game unbeaten run last year.
Tucson was terrible for about 2 months and then like struck gold. But
yeah, true.
It's because they started playing at midnight every night.
Right.
Our secret sauce is that we make everybody play at 1 a.m.
Well, I mean, the concern you have for Fuego is just looking ahead for their next 3 games you have going up against Knoxville, North Carolina, and Tormenta, all at home, all over the next couple weeks here in May. There's a break extended between North Carolina and Tormenta of 15 days. They had one instance last year where they had a 3-match losing streak, and that was the longest that it's ever gotten in club history. They've already lost 2, and it's looking likely they could.
Rest in peace, Ryan. That's tough. I just don't. I share a lot of sympathy for Fuego because I want them to be good. I desperately want them to be good because someone in that Central Valley being good, someone in that part of the country being good is so much fun to watch. I mean, they're not terribly far. Maybe I'm dead wrong, but they're not terribly far from Sacramento, right?
Yeah, they're in that same pocket of NorCal.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine if they could get it figured out. And hey, if they would have met in the US Open Cup, I mean, that would have just been, it would have been really fun, but they would get killed. Imagine if Sacramento and Fuego played today. Oh my God. But, kind of speaking about teams looking to figure it out, unless anybody else has something to say about Fuego and or Greenville.
Fuego ended my internet there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Fresno died for this.
DDoS attack.
All right. But speaking kind of teams getting it together and trying to pull it together, we're going to go ahead and go into our predictions, and we are going to start off with 2 teams that need to get it together. And John, you kind of gave us a little breakdown of how one team can do the dang thing.
Hello and welcome into the USL Tactics Show, where today I want to talk through Detroit's attack and some of the things that have been ailing it so far in the season. One of the big issues for me has come from their inability to break opponents down, which is reflected in their low pass accuracy in the opposing half, and also the low quality of chances they're creating, which is related to their low conversion rate. One of the big struggles so far has been tempo and movement with the ball. You'll see a couple examples within the 3-5-2 here, and there's some motion, there's some rotation from Detroit, but they're moving the ball very slowly. They aren't taking advantage of those passing windows that are forcing defenses to rotate, and it's becoming an issue for them. They're getting zone entries. They're getting into the final third in some of these opportunities, but there just aren't the passing windows, and they aren't moving with the speed that is allowing them to break down the opposition. You're seeing it time and again. You're noting how some of these runs are occurring. Watch the midfield here. Players are in motion, but they're doing it late. They're not making themselves available in better situations. And again, you're going to see the same thing in that 4-4-2 that we've often seen from Trevor James this year. It's a bit of a decent motion in terms of the tempo here, but no one is linking play between the lines, which is a real problem in the 4-4-2. So how can things improve? Here, from that Open Cup win that we got from Detroit, you're seeing some really anticipatory movement. When they get to the ball to the wing back, one of the forwards has already moved wide, another one is filling behind him, and that linking of the play is seeing Detroit get a goal because they are thinking ahead in the way that they're moving. You're seeing an example with tempo here. Detroit knows that Sacramento plays with a wing back who's aggressive, and they're playing down that side, getting Rutz and Morris involved and interchanging in a way that takes advantage. What's more, getting Devin Mensah back is going to be a big deal. Few defenders in the USL are as talented as him as carrying the ball and getting into the final third to drive attacks from defensive roles. Now, all of these things need to come with an improvement in that finishing, but I do think that if you get more motion, if you improve what you're getting from the defense, you're going to be able to overload opponents, get better looks, and improve that conversion rate to get Detroit back into the playoff race.
Before we go too far, I want to just stare at this graph. Those things that have been showing lately of like top right rays in baseball where they're just far and away from everybody else. What Monterey Bay? What are
That's I literally started laughing like during the like trying to not crack up over here because it's like it is ridiculous like what they're doing, and you can see just how ridiculous it is. But
they have a 13% higher conversion rate than anyone else in the league, and the league average overall is like 11%. Like you can't even fathom what they're doing right now.
And I mean, but what you said in there, John, too, like it's so like mentioning Devin Mensah, his importance like in changing their attack, and then their goal tonight against Minnesota is like assisted by him. So yeah, good shout.
But that's one way, hey, to figure it out. Detroit, you got the blueprint. Tampa Bay, baby, I don't know what to tell you anymore. Stop playing the 4-4-2 and stop going. I just don't know what they're doing. I don't get it. And I want to get it, but I don't get it. There's no way that losing Leo had this much of an impact. And I know he's great. I understand that he is a great player. There is no question about that. When he won MVP last year, it might have been the easiest decision ever. But also, there's no way one player is what's causing their self-destruction. It's incredible how bad they've been. And I don't understand. And these are two teams, Detroit versus Tampa Bay, going to be in Detroit. I mean, Detroit got a little taste of goal scoring again tonight. They end up losing 4-1 to Minnesota. But, they really looked pretty dang good for about 50 minutes. Do they take a little bit of that momentum into the match of, hey, we got the goal, we got the monkey off the back? Or they kind of walk out saying, we have a good defense and we lost by 4? I don't know. I want to start off with you, John.
Yeah, I mean, despite the fact that I'm bullish on improvement from Detroit, I do think that Tampa Bay actually looked good for a lot of that game against San Diego. In terms of the issue, I think a lot of it came down to the fact that they needed Jan Ekra and Zach Harivo to drive creation in the middle, and neither of them really have that skill set. Things changed when they brought on like Charlie Dennis and Ariel Martinez, but they were already losing at that point, and San Diego could really bunker back. But at the end of the day, this Rowdies team is just better than Detroit, and Detroit can maybe eke out a draw, but this feels like an important game for the Rowdies and one that they end up winning.
But I mean, I don't want to cut you off first, Phil, but how many times have we said that Tampa Bay is more talented than blank? We've said that same sentence so many times now, because if you look at the talent that they have on the roster, they're more talented than just about everybody in the USL. I understand that the difference between Tampa Bay and Detroit might be higher than other matchups, but I also think that the way Detroit plays defensively, it's hard for me to see Tampa Bay even just scoring. It's hard for me to see them really truly create chances.
Yeah,
They've been the better team in half their games this year. I will say that, but
yeah, I think it is one of those things like driven by the underlying numbers, even if they haven't been getting the results. Like I do think Tampa Bay still holds the edge here, and I am like picking them to win on the road in Detroit just because I think like Detroit definitely will take some credit from like how they started tonight against Minnesota, but there is also probably some damage being done in like the size of the implosion after 60 minutes. So depending on how things go tomorrow for Tampa against Houston Dynamo, I mean, we could be saying the same thing. Who knows? But they're both coming out of Open Cup games. Tampa, a little bit of travel, not too concerned. And I do think they were a little unlucky in how things played out in San Diego. So I still think Tampa gets the win here. But I'm saying that fully knowing that Tampa Bay has let me down on a number of occasions already this season. So
Ryan? Oh, is he dead again? Oh,
he's
there
back.
he goes.
Yeah.
Ryan, who you got?
Yeah, I'm picking Tampa Bay to win this one as well. Just looking at Detroit City, they haven't scored in 462 minutes. That's just astounding to me. It's been nearly 8 hours since their last USL goal. I think Pony had the tweet tonight that they've scored more goals against MLS teams this month than they have USL teams. That we're like getting close to, if they don't score against Tampa Bay, their goal of the month nominee is going to be that one goal they had against Minnesota. I can't get past that, and I think Tampa Bay win.
I personally see this as a 0-0 draw. But again, I can't pick draws, even though this year feels like the year because everybody's drawing constantly. I'm going Detroit. I think it's just one of those things of I trust the defense a lot. I trust that back line. And if they take what they did in this match, I mean, against even Minnesota for that first 60 minutes, their wings looked lively. They looked really good. And then it kind of fell apart, but they looked lively and they looked good. And if they take that with them, I think there's going to be enough momentum at home to do it. So I'm going to go with Detroit. And I'm not confident in anything I just said. Moving on, we're going down to Phoenix where they are taking on God's chosen club, Loudoun United, where Phoenix has been pretty good this year. Not quite getting the results, though. Just does not seem to get the wins at the right time, but everything looks pretty good. Meanwhile, hey, Loudoun, baby, it's real, and they are here. Pegasus McPegasus face is celebrating like crazy on Twitter. That's your name, you dumb horse. All right. John, who you got?
I love how Loudoun's playing. The expected goals, love what they're doing, and I locked Phoenix in this one. I just believe in what this Rising team is doing. I think that they've had some bad injury luck in terms of that back three. They've very rarely had Fede Varela and Danny Trejo on the pitch. All of those things are coming together. If you're a Loudoun team with a very inexperienced back line that tends to try to build with some short passes, with a bit of control, that's going to be tough against this Phoenix press. Rising are due for a statement win, and that's nothing against Loudoun. I think this is going to be a very exciting game, but ultimately one that the Rising get.
I think I'm reading Loudoun's schedule right, that this will only be their third away match of the season. They have played almost exclusively at home, and their only road win so far, they got absolutely spanked in Tulsa. Their road win so far was against Memphis 901 early on in the season. So I just think this team on the road in Phoenix, this is a big ask for Loudon, and I think Phoenix get the job done and rebound a little bit at home. But yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Loudon are having to go cross country for this one, and we just haven't seen them tested in an environment like what is it now, Wild Horse Pass or wherever they're at now.
Yeah, they're at Phoenix Rising Stadium at 38th and Washington now.
Oh, right. Yeah, not Wild Horse Pass.
It rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, we'll stick with that. So, anyways, I think Phoenix get the win.
I mean, Phil, you touched base on how few road games they've played up to this point for Loudon. They have 4 road wins since 2021. I mean, 2 of them are against Memphis. Then you have 1 against New York Red Bulls, 2, and then you have to go back to 2021 to find the one before that, which was at the start of the year, somehow against New Mexico. I just think it's challenging enough for them to go cross country that it's not going to be one match that they'll win, and Phoenix will pick up the result and quietly have a 5-game unbeaten streak.
I'm going Loudon here. It's not really for like tactical reasons or anything like that. Honestly, they only have 5 people on that team older than me. I think they're young and dumb enough to not care. They are one that the Loudon experience is just wild because they get a shot, they see a sliver of an opening and they just shoot. They just shoot. They are a ridiculous experience. And when it doesn't work, like against FC Tulsa, it really doesn't work. But also, I just don't think that they care. They just kind of have that vibe of a team, and especially with Ryan like really getting rolling on being a goal scorer. Phoenix is going to have to figure him out, and then they have everybody else to figure out behind him. I think Loudon's going to win this match. If Phoenix wins, am I shocked? Absolutely not. But this is a sneaky match between 2 really good teams. Moving on, I wish Alan was here because we have, a USL derby, the USL show derby, where we have San Diego going against El Paso, a San Diego team who is just continuing to put out results. And if it wasn't for some team named Sacramento, maybe San Diego would be the story of the USL season so far versus El Paso, who I criminally underrated. I thought they'd be much worse. As it turns out, getting a good coach will do good things for you. This one's in San Diego. And how's this one going, John?
I went San Diego, but you just referred to that Loudon Phoenix as a really good game between 2 really good teams. I think that probably better fits this game. I think when push comes to shove at the end of the season, like these might be 2 of the teams with home field advantage in the West, dare I say. And maybe I'm just reading too much into the way that El Paso have looked these past couple weeks. I loved that Pittsburgh performance. I think they addressed Lily Ball about as well as you possibly can. That said, I'm so high on this Loyal club. I think they're going to get the win here. I think they're so deep. I think that they know how to come at opponents, but it's going to be a real chess match between Nate Miller and Brian Clairhout here. I'm just excited for this game, but I do think the Loyal win in the end.
I mean, you mentioned the Pittsburgh performance. I mean, Waite's controller died in the middle of the game.
I will say that goal. I do think he is faced with a little bit of a Sophie's choice as a goalkeeper there, because it's like, do I come out and claim this, or do I face Lucha Solignac one-on-one bearing down on goal? Because nobody's getting to it aside from Lucha. So yeah, I feel for him. It absolutely was not the right decision, obviously, like hindsight being 2020. But yeah, I get why he was like, I don't really love my odds in this one-on-one. But no, I went for El Paso one because, I mean, obviously, but I think like the thought process here is we are seeing like a couple of things from Brian Clare out, like you guys have alluded to. First is I don't think I've seen a manager like since the inception of Locomotive who is so good at game planning for the opponent, and really like making significant changes to the game plan week in and week out to address specific like weaknesses or strengths of an opponent. So the other thing that's really like that is encouraging for Locomotive, I think, going into a game specifically against Loyal, is they have had a good track record of quieting the big name like danger men on the opposition, where the sort of, you know, the people that you're looking to really be difference makers for the opposition, like in the last few games when you look across since this nice little unbeaten streak in the league has started in Louisville, like very quiet games from Cameron Lancaster, relatively quiet game from Marcus Epps in Tulsa, relatively quiet game from Milan Olaski in Orange County, like against Orange County, very quiet game from Edward Kizza in El Paso. So like I do think that similarly some of San Diego's danger can be dealt with by how El Paso game plan. And Petar Petrovic, scorer of one of the goals of the week, and my goal of the week in the championship, anyways, with the one touch on the left to a finish on the right with the second touch, just a lovely goal on the ball from Dennis Castician. And I think those two players being the offseason acquisitions and really starting to click in terms of like adding goals and assists, that is a potent combination of things. And so I do back Locomotive to get a result, and I'm counting on Loyal getting some of the sting taken out of them in the Open Cup tomorrow night. So that's another aspect of it where Locomotive don't participate in that competition to my knowledge. So
Tin pot trophy anyway, am I right?
Yeah, no, it's Bin it, mate.
Yeah, this next few weeks for Locomotive really starts an interesting kind of span of games between now and June 14th. They basically, their next 6 games, 5 of them are away from home, which is very crucial for El Paso to kind of start getting a few results out of. They have, out of their, dating back to last season, they've scored in every single road game in the last 6 road games that they've had. I just think San Diego is on a pretty good run of form right now. I do think both teams will score in this one, but I'm picking Loyal to win.
Everything about this is telling me that San Diego is going to win because they're the better team, and that's why I took El Paso. I mean, El Paso looks good. They look really good. And the one thing that continues to worry me about El Paso is their strength and depth in the forward position personally. But their forwards ain't hurt yet. So ride that hot hand, keep doing the dang thing. I think that this is going to, especially with San Diego, who's probably going to fully go for it against Seattle. I think El Paso is going to be rested. They're going to be playing their best players. Meanwhile, San Diego might be rotating a little bit. Everything tells me that this one's going to be San Diego despite that, but so I'm taking El Paso. So there we have that. Moving on, we have to League One. My personal best defense in the USL in League One anyway. And Ford Madison, who continues to get results going against Charlotte Independence, who, oh boy, is this attack starting to look real dangerous, except against Union Omaha. Maybe that defense is real too. I mean, Charlotte Independence, I mean, they can score, they can defend, but can they pay their players? I don't know. John?
Yeah, I mean, open question there for sure. I do. Well, by the way, it's weird the fact that they like brought in Dane Kelly, brought in Joel Johnson, and I don't know. I'll avoid this point. I'm gonna take Charlotte to win this one, despite the fact that they're on the road. I really believe in what that offense is doing. Madison has looked good. I think they've given up like 2 goals in 5 games, or not even 5 games, 3 games. But I don't know. There's something about the Charlotte team this year where they feel like they've really cracked the code. They've had firepower in their last year in the USL Championship. They really had some success with Corey Bennett and Mbuyu and all of that last year. It's coming to a head with some of those old faces, some of the new discoveries in a way that I really like what they're doing.
I went the other way. I went for forward to get the 3 points here. I think yeah, I've just been encouraged by like basically them shaking off some of the stuff that made them more of the, you know, kings of the draw, and finding some difference makers in attacking areas. So I like forward in this matchup, but I don't think, I mean, given Charlotte's history over the last few games, you're probably looking at, you know, a 2-1 at most, like maybe a 1-0 the way it's gone. So yeah, low scoring affair, but I think forward do get the win.
Ryan? Oh, is he dead again?
Mr.
Rest in peace.
Freeze.
Oh, we'll come back to him once he's alive. Oh, he's alive.
Sorry, Wi-Fi issues again, but I will take Charlotte to win this one, and I'm just gonna keep it quick. Just I don't know if the Wi-Fi is gonna bump out again.
Fair. You know, all things considering, with your no meaningless statistic, the Yankees are playing the Rangers, so I don't know if it's a surefire win, but
That they applied to Yankees on Madison home openers. The home openers already passed.
Okay, only home openers. Got it. But I'm taking forward Madison here. Sneaky Madison might be one of the best environments in all of the USL from League One to Championship. It's a good time. And I don't like being that person, but going from 400 fans to almost 4,000 fans, it's going to be maybe a little jarring for Charlotte. On top of that, I mean, and
No, we
not
got
even,
we got a Kaler pause. Oh, how the tables have turned.
I hate it here.
This is
Where did I
great.
stop? Yeah, this is awesome.
Just like 5 words ago. It was super quick.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, Madison is really good, and they're not just good at defending; they are really good at the attack too. They are really, really good at counterattacks and getting them going. And I think that this is a Charlotte team who's going to try to go for it because their strength is in their attack, and they're going to get caught out by especially guys like Stephen Payne, who is one of the best wing backs and can essentially play as a winger if he needs to. I think this is going to be Madison. And moving on, before all of our internet dies, we have a match of the must wins for everybody's sake and sanity. We have the Chattanooga Sad Boys versus the Lexington. I don't got nothing for them. More Reds than wins. I got nothing unique.
Yeah, Chattanooga looked horrendous against North Carolina. Like, it is what it is against that North Carolina team who is going to be a wagon in the league this year. Alex Anderson ate them up top. I think Lexington wise, I'm a big fan of what they're getting in the middle with Delamani right now. He's someone who can really dictate a game. When I'm thinking about the games that Chattanooga has looked good in, they haven't faced a midfielder who can really take a game by the scruff of the neck and control it. There's a whole lot of factors going each way here, so I ended up on a draw, but this is a weird one in my head.
Yeah, I went Lexington, and it was primarily just off of like the lack of any sort of momentum for Chattanooga. Lexington have had some encouraging performances. They've kept it respectable in all of their games. I just think I don't know. There's just the vibes are off with Red Wolves, so I'm going Lexington.
Yeah, I pick Lexington as well. It's going to be one of those matches that I think it's whoever's going to want it more, and I just think Lexington has that more in them right now.
Yeah, I'm also, you kind of mentioned Delamani. I'm also obsessed with Soymin Kim.
Yeah.
I love him. I think he's so good. And Chattanooga is still doing this thing where it sounds so stupid when I say it, where if you don't make mistakes, you'll beat them because Chattanooga won't force you to make mistakes.
Mhm.
They capitalize on your mistakes, but they won't force you to make them. And between Don Smart, who we're assuming he won't get sent off again, Delamani, and then, passing up to Kim, who's looked really good on the ball. I don't see a lot of mistakes coming out of those three, and it's not going to be, I guess, in enough of a dangerous area for Chattanooga to capitalize. So I'm taking Lexington. I mean, Chattanooga, how they have fallen. I mean, and they got poached, they got picked apart, and it seems like every basis of the system still kind of exists that they had last year under Coach Ziggy. They've brought in kind of new players, kind of a new idea. But I think we said it preseason. In League One, if you try to be defensive, you're going to lose. This is a league based all about the attack. Whoever wins the attacking midfield wins the game, and they decided, hey, we're going to be defensive, and it's just not working. But like Ryan said in our private chat, Coach Ziggy does wear a scarf every single match, and I have mad respect for that. I want to see if he keeps it up in the middle of a Chattanooga summer. Maybe he goes to a summer scarf, because if not, they're going to need like hydration breaks for him because he may die. So, all right. Anything else USL world wise, fellas? No. Okay. Ryan, some final thoughts on the night?
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier, but as I always have like an Arnold Palmer while I drink, I'm always curious why the calories on the back has a per serving and per container is something separate. Like the serving size is less than what they actually sell you. Like, am I gonna like just not have an entire container worth of this? Like how Pop Tarts and their serving size is just one Pop Tart, and like, but you package us with 2 Pop Tarts, so. Sorry, random food and drink thought.
This is great.
It's a great point. It's like I have like a package of popcorn in there, and it tells you how much is in a fourth of a cup, how much is in a serving, but not how much is in the bag. Just
Bizarre.
Irrelevant.
and I'm going to eat it all, but I would like to know. Phil?
I'm trying to think if I'm like watching anything good right now. I finally got around to watching Poker Face, the series on Peacock with Natasha Lyonne. It's a fun one. Like it's not anything like earth shattering, but it is fun and nice little mystery thing. Ryan Johnson's involved, so that's always nice. Aside from that, I'm like, I had like a really weird couple of weeks of like traveling for work and all kinds of stuff. So it's nice to just like have my feet back underneath me and maybe actually get to like write some stuff for Seriously Loco. We recorded a new podcast last night. If you want to hear more about Locomotive beating Pittsburgh, and I'll actually be able to get some like stuff out now that I'm back.
Wonderful to hear. Also, check out the Patreon. Just saying.
Word. Thanks.
And speaking of subscribing to things, check out Backtold. Am I right, John?
Yes, you are. Yeah, and by the way, if you just want to hear like Phil go on about that goal that we were talking about with Petrovic, it's good stuff on the pod. So that's worth a listen.
I promised 5 minutes. I think I delivered closer to 10.
Yeah. Just in terms of things I've been watching. Barry is back on HBO. I know Succession is the big thing, but it's the show on right after. It's completely surreal and hilarious and dark, but I think it is saying important and interesting things at the same time. So no, that's vague, obviously, but great show if you've got the service.
Love that. So I am still moving my apartment, and I've realized that the couch that was gifted us is too heavy for us to move right now. So my couch in my living room is a twin-sized bed. So things are going great. I just finished watching. Well, Catherine made me finish watching Love Is Blind season 4. Um, you know, uh, not a great season. Not great. Um, but by God, did I watch it?
Bonus episode of the USL show breaking down Love Is Blind season 4.
I'm not gonna lie. Her and I will go to a coffee shop and just talk about Love Is Blind for hours, and I hate the show. I I despise the show, but it is fun to talk about. I don't like watching it, but talking about it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like watching Legion half the time. But you know what? It's fine. Let's see. Anything else going on? Nah, not really. I think that's about it from us. We do have one other thing that's kind of on the way. We're trying to figure out some details. If you want to know a little spoiler, go check out the last episode of Kids Season. It's at the very beginning, so check that out. So, but thank you all so much for watching. And even though he's not here, hey, Alan, how about that beautiful voice with the new outro?
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.